The Easton Magic Academy is one of the most prestigious schools in the entire magical realm. Not even 2% of all applicants can get in, making it harder than even Harvard University. The entrance exam professor Lucci overlooks all the students who have come to take the entrance exam. He thinks that all of these students look mediocre but can't figure out what happens to the guy. Mash is out there doing power dumbbells like WWE wrestler.
How?
Lucci wondered what this stunts could be doing right before an exam, but Mash went on to start doing the invisible chair in front of him, what puzzled Lucci the most. Meanwhile, the dumbass trying to hide behind Mash like they're normal trees. Roger wonders if this would work, but Brad tells him that they even created a fake scar for him, which he thinks that slackers like him will fail anyway. The entrance exam ceremony begins. Lucci appears from a plume of fire and introduces himself as the 7th greatest magician. He tells everyone to take their seats and uses his magical ability to spawn desks along with papers and pen. Everyone praises him, excluding Mash, who says that he's overcompensating since he could have just taken them to a room that was already set up, but Lucci tries to ignore all these attacks because he thinks someone like Mash will surely fail the entrance exam. The students look at the test paper and see all the words squirming around. Brad and Roger doubt Mash could ever pass this test. Mash commands the words to stop moving, but nothing happens. He crushes his pen and commands them to stop moving, so the words get scared of him and come to a stop. Lucci thinks he probably just randomly scribbled but sees all the words aligned perfectly. Mash goes on to make the boulder appear to float and is even fast enough to run above the water. He found every possible way to pass the tests without using magic, and this infuriated Lucci. So for the next exam, he made a giant maze appear, but this was no ordinary maze. It was filled with traps that you could only pass with your magical ability. Mash thinks this is the easiest of all tests so far, but the main love interest Lemon decides to enter. She begged him to help her because she would give him some blank as a reward. Mash could turn down the offer, so he accepted it and they began walking together. Mash is getting bored until the girl falls into a trap, but Mash is still in it just for the talk. He starts running before it's too late for the test, so the girl uses her magical ability to restrain him with metal cuffs. She reveals she'd been deceiving him this whole time, so he doesn't make it to the goal area. Mash thinks it's unfortunate he's been deceived and breaks the metal cuffs, shocking the girl. He runs faster than the Flash, and before the girl is able to respond, a giant pharaoh approaches her. She then tries to raise her wand to fight against the monster, but the pharaoh knocks her wand out and threatens her to respond immediately. She's trembling in fear and screams for help, but realizes that she doesn't deserve it. Just then our hero, Mash, comes in and says that a creature like it couldn't possibly exist. Lemon wonders why he came back to rescue her after she deceived him, and he tells her that he kind of felt sorry for her. She wonders how they're going to pass since the time for the test is almost up. In the last moment, all the students hear rumbling and the sound of destruction. Lucci thinks there's no way he would be able to break through those 1-meter thick walls, but Mash is the little brother of Saitama and there is no way he can't destroy every single wall in his way. The Grand Master sees this and thinks he's an interesting applicant. However, all the students accuse him of merely cheated and scream at him to go home. Bullied Mash gets sad and wants to go home himself. He takes the criticism of everyone yelling at him, but Lemon yells at them to stop because it wasn't his fault. Lucci yells at her to stop talking before he reconsiders the promise he made with her, but Lemon goes on to reveal that she was merely following Lucci's orders to deceive Mash, because if she was successful, he would allow her to attend the school, which would save her family from their poverty. Even though she deceived him, Mash still saved her and proposed to marry her. Mash tries to explain the actual situation, but she still thinks he was confessing his love to her. Lucci smiles, saying there was nothing wrong with what he did because he's the examiner after all. These two are merely useless, so he wanted to dispose of them. He activates a magical circle, telling Mash to challenge him if he wishes to somehow pass. The entire field overflows with his magical powers. Mash tells him that he's going too far, and Roger and Brad think that they should have expected it. Lucci is ready to fight him off, but the headmaster appears in the sky and says they will be moving on to interviews now, and tells Lucci to meet him in his office. After this, the first person to be interviewed is Mash, and they begin the interview right away. He asks him why he chose this academy, and Mash thinks about it. Mash states that he wanted to live in peace with his family, and the Grandmaster accepts that answer. The principal goes on to ask why he saved the girl even if it would risk failing the test. Mash says he didn't want to regret not saving her. He says that even if the Sphinx was stronger than him, he still needed to find a way to save her. The Grandmaster warns him that there are monsters out there that would overwhelm him, so he asks him what he would do in those situations. He goes on to use magical power to summon a giant creature and challenges Mash to face him. This extraordinary power even sends fear into the other council members, and the Grandmaster explains that his grandpa's soul is latched inside of this monster, but that's not all. If a knife stabbed into the doll, his grandpa would never return. Mash tries to punch the knife but just bleeds from its sheer power. The Grandmaster tells him that he can't do anything in this situation, but Mash uses his arm to stop the knife from moving down. He knows that the Headmaster can't keep something this big in existence for a long time, so he just needs to endure this until the Headmaster runs out of mana. The Headmaster is impressed because he'd always been looking for a strong person who wants to help the weak, and he's finally found someone like that. The test is over and the Headmaster apologizes for testing him for the final time. Mash accepts the apology and answers his question. If he had to face the Headmaster to save his loved one, he'd knock the stuffing out of him with his fist. The rest of the council yell at his disrespectful reply, but the Grand Master welcomes him to the academy. That was the way Mash passed the entrance exam and became a student. During his first day in class, the teacher shows everyone how to use magic to open a lock. She tells the students to try it, so Mash decides to snap the lock in half. The teacher yells and says this is a magical school, but Mash says he doesn't know how to do magic. His classmate thinks that Mash might be a troublesome student and hopes that they won't be roommates. The guy tries to look for his room but can't find the door, so he stumbles in the wrong room. The guy then sees Mash, who has six-pack abs, and starts introducing himself as Finn, and Mash introduces himself back. He begins introducing his muscles and Finn thinks this guy is a psycho. After meeting each other, Mash asks him how a student can become the Divine Visionary. Finn goes on to explain that they need to collect 10 gold coins while keeping their grades up. Mash thinks he's going to have difficulty here. To thank Finn for his information, Mash hands him a cream puff and they celebrate their new friendship.